Imagine being rejected by the biggest company in your industry and turning that rejection into a multi-billion-dollar empire. That's Netflix, a company that didn't just survive failure, it reinvented failure. From a $40 late fee to a platform that shapes global culture, Netflix's story is a lesson in leadership through iteration, courage, and relentless imagination. Stick with me. By the end of this first half, you'll own 5 brutal, usable leadership levels that explain how a mail-order startup became the engine of streaming, personalization, and global storytelling. This isn't platitude or cheerleading, it's a blueprint. Each level below is a mindset, a decision architecture that leaders can apply whether you run a studio, a startup, or a team of 5. I'll tell the stories you know and the details most people miss, and I'll show you the precise mental moves Netflix leaders made when the world expected them to play safe. Level 1. Seeing opportunity and rejection. Picture 1997. Reed Hastings returns a rented Apollo 13, gets slapped with a $40 late fee, and instead of fuming, he asks a question. Why is this system designed to punish customers? Most people would grumble. Hastings hunted a business idea. This is the first leadership move. Transform personal frustration into market insight. Hastings and co-founder Mark Randolph didn't invent Netflix out of nostalgia. They mapped a pain portfolio, late fees, out-of-stock titles, inconvenient store hours. Every customer friction point was a clue, a market micro-failure begging for a redesign. The logic here is simple and repeatable. Empathy-first problem discovery. Leaders who can turn personal irritation into customer-obsessed product thinking spot opportunities that spreadsheets miss. Hastings didn't ask, how do we beat Blockbuster? He asked, how do we remove every point of friction that makes renting terrible? That framing is what created the initial product hypothesis that became a platform. Level 2. Innovating before the market asks. By 1998, Netflix bet on DVDs by mail, a technology most consumers hadn't adopted. People still used video stores. Reed and Mark intentionally moved ahead of demand. That's the crucial difference between reactive and proactive leadership. Most executives wait for customers to beg for something. Level 2. Leaders push the frontier. Netflix didn't merely respond to customer pain, it anticipated technological adoption curves and created infrastructure before the market could price it. That means accepting early friction, educating customers, and enduring skepticism. Why this works? Innovation compounds when you align product design with a trajectory, not a single data point. Netflix saw the trajectory of optical media, logistics optimization, and consumer convenience converging. They didn't wait for perfect latency or flawless DVD penetration. They educated the market while building operational advantage. Level 3. Betting everything on digital. Fast forward to 2007. Netflix had a working DVD by mail business, steady revenue, and an emerging subscriber base. Launching streaming then felt reckless. Internet speeds were inconsistent. Codecs were clumsy. Buffering was the enemy of delight. Yet Reed Hastings and the leadership team bet the company's future on digital distribution. This is the knife edge of leadership, willingness to cannibalize your own success. Many companies die here because they optimize the present at the expense of an inevitable future. Netflix chose temporary pain for permanent positioning. They invested in bandwidth negotiation, adaptive streaming, and content licensing that initially made little financial sense. The psychology is worth dissecting. This requires temporal courage, the capacity to accept short-term losses while you build an uncopyable future asset. It also requires aligning stakeholders to a story longer than a quarter. Reed's leadership paid dividends because he could model the compound benefits of infrastructure and user habits that would accrue years later. Level 4. Building a culture of freedom and responsibility. If levels 1 through 3 are about where to bet and when to leap, level 4 is about who you need to pull it off. Netflix rewired the corporate playbook. No vacation policies, no tight expense rules, minimal process, and an explicit emphasis on freedom plus responsibility. The goal? Attract and keep world-class engineers, data scientists, and storytellers. This was deliberate strategy, not Silicon Valley indulgence. As Netflix moved from media into technology, its talent needs shifted. The company knew that traditional studios' HR playbook would repel the kind of creative engineer hybrid Netflix needed. So they removed process constraints that slow experimentation and signaled trust that high performers will self-manage. Leadership truth. Culture is a competitive lever. If you want agile teams that iterate faster than the market, you must design an operating system that privileges autonomy but demands accountability. Netflix's model wasn't lawless. It was trust-based. Give high performers discretion and expect exceptional results. Level 5. Learning from near-death moments. No heroic rise is linear. In 2011, Netflix did the infamous Quickster split and hemorrhaged subscribers. An ugly public failure. They lost hundreds of thousands of customers and took a historic hit to brand trust. But the leadership lesson wasn't in the mistake. It was in the response. Level 5 leaders fail loudly and recalibrate quickly. Reed Hastings publicly apologized, reversed the decision, and mined the disaster for concrete lessons. Communication clarity matters, pricing psychology matters, and internal logic must never outrun customer empathy. This is the difference between brittle and resilient companies. A brittle company hides error and punishes dissent. A resilient one institutionalizes honest feedback, admits mistakes, and uses failure as a learning accelerator. Netflix's recovery after Quickster wasn't luck. It was a cultural muscle. They absorbed a tremendous shock and restructured decisions to avoid the same blind spots. Level 6. Turning algorithms into empathy. Most companies treat data as a scoreboard. Netflix treated data as a conversation. The leadership move at level 6. Turn algorithms into empathy. Netflix didn't build recommendations to maximize clicks alone. They built them to understand mood. Behind the scenes is a discipline. Combine viewing signals, what people pause, what they binge, what they abandon, with human editorial insight to predict what will feel right next. The product becomes emotional scaffolding. It helps viewers find comfort, surprise, and connection. Why this matters? Personalization is scaled compassion. In a noisy market, being the service that understands you before you do is sticky. Netflix's recommender reduced discovery friction, keeping viewers inside the ecosystem and increasing lifetime value without shouting for attention. Leadership application. Treat data teams like empathy teams. Metrics are necessary, but the real KPI is felt relevance, measured by retention during tough quarters and by the intensity of organic social conversation about content. Build cross-disciplinary squads that pair engineers with curators and psychologists. Level 7. Globalizing storytelling. Act local, win global. Netflix's gambit wasn't only tech, it was cultural. Level 7 leaders recognize a simple truth. Great stories travel when they're authentic. Rather than exporting American TV, Netflix financed local creators and let them own the narrative voice. The result? Hits like Squid Game that exploded globally because authenticity translated across borders. This is a different kind of global strategy, one that blends local sovereignty with global distribution. Leadership here is about decentralizing creative power while preserving global standards for production and audience matching. It's not top-down globalization, it's networked cultural empowerment. Why it works? Authenticity generates signal in an attention economy saturated with noise. A Korean thriller that tells the truth about human behavior will find viewers everywhere because it resonates on a human, not just a cultural level. Level 8. Admit mistakes. Fast? The speed of correction muscle. We talked about Quickster earlier, the textbook case of how not to do change. Level 8 is the counterpoint. Speed of recognition and correction becomes a strategic asset. Netflix institutionalized humility. When experiments went wrong, leaders didn't hide. They apologized, explained, and rewired. That transparency restored trust faster than corporate spin ever could. More importantly, the company converted public failures into internal rituals. What went wrong, what data we missed, and how we rewire incentives to avoid repetition. Level 9. Reinventing. Again, ads, AI, and hybrid models. Dominance is not a finish line, it's a moving target. Level 9 is about continuous reinvention when the core business looks stable. When subscriber growth slowed and competition rose, Netflix did something uncomfortable. They introduced ad-supported tiers and doubled down on AI for content optimization and production workflows. This was pragmatic, not ideological. Ads went against a purity principle Netflix had long held, but leadership evaluated customer segments honestly and created choice. Simultaneously, Netflix used AI not to replace creators but to augment them, optimizing localization, predicting creative elements that would resonate in specific markets, and streamlining production pipelines. Netflix's arc is not a miracle. It's a sequence of disciplined convictions. Failure is raw data. Leadership is the way you process it. If this inspired you to rethink reinvention, subscribe to Next Level Leadership. Turn on notifications.